Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lost in the Reel. Today, we are going to be going over all of the gossip, the scandal, and the sexiness, or lack thereof, of Bridgerton Season 2. I am here with Lady Sarah Carey from Smells Like Teen Angst. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, I love that I have lady in front of my thing. Oh my
Lady.
God, I'm going to change my lower third. Hold on.
Exactly. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to talk Bridgerton with you.
I'm excited to always talk with you, Sean.
Thank
but what
you.
we do, Victor, Bridgerton is here from our Gossip Girl stuff. Bridgerton is going to be fun.
Yes, definitely. I am so curious to hear your thoughts on this season because I have a whole lot of them. So let's get started with just kind of like our overall, just a quick little blip of your thoughts of this season.
So I need to start this off by saying that I am a book reader of the Bridgerton series. The Viscount Who Loved Me is one of my favorites. Kate is one of my favorite characters of the entire series. I love a very strong-willed, headstrong woman. It might because it's me. Anyway. So going into this season, their story is one of my favorite love stories, and it is not the book. And so once I got over that shock, I can say I actually really did enjoy this season.
Okay, good. Good,
yes.
good.
I love it twice, but I enjoyed
it. Disclaimer, I have not read the book. So this is going to be kind of fun, getting two different perspectives, someone who has read the book and someone who hasn't. I really liked this season too. I definitely think that it's a lot different than season one. And I don't know if people are going to be as goo goo gaga over this season as they were with the first. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you completely. I noticed it from the trailer that we got for season two. It has a complete tonal shift. The cinematography is completely different. Yeah. The music choices, while they're still like our fun classical covers, they're also very much more aggressive. And I think that's because as they've said, like Shonda's dream is to have 8 seasons because there's 8 Bridgerton children. But we know Bridgerton's only been renewed up to season 4 at this point. Okay. So this is a story where season 1 was a story told through Daphne's eyes of a girl who's now coming out and everything's glamorous and big and grand. This is a story from Anthony's perspective, who hates this whole entire world, wants nothing to do with this coming out. As we know, he's doing this just because he has to, because he feels the duty of the eldest child to get married and find the wife that just happens to work and will breed good children. And I think that is completely shown just from the look of it and the feel of it. And then you get it in the tone of it as well.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I did not think about that, but you're totally right. Because the first season is just like the cinematography, it's luscious, it's grand, it's glamorous, like you said. And this season is a lot more muted. You don't really notice a lot of those grand things. So
the walls are still there, the galas are still there, but they're just like
seen through a different and muted is a great word because it just it's just a little bit darker, and the music choice, it's more aggressive, it's more somber almost. So I think people are going to like it like we did, but I think they're going to be like, where's the sex, which we're gonna have to talk about.
We will get there. That's a big one that I was like, interesting, this is an interesting choice.
Yes, exactly. Wait, like how many episodes has it been and there is no nudity? There's no sex?
I have to say this now so I don't say this later. We were introduced, and this is just an Anthony Bridgerton introduction. He was having sex with a woman against a tree, and he had these amazing sex scenes with the opera singer. So then have it be such it's a story choice. It might be a COVID choice.
Right.
Yeah. We'll just leave it there. I just thought it was very surprising, at least even in that first episode montage where you see that it's so chaotic and it's shot weird and sideways. And then you see Anthony still sleeping with women and paying them, like with Women of the Night, as I like to call it. You know, you get his butt and you see him paying them, but you don't see Anthony being the rake that he is. And I think I'm going to go with COVID choice.
Yeah, I think it has to be, because I was just so like, where is that? Like, that's what people, it was like Downton Abbey, but with, sex, and it was steamy, and, like, I was just like, where is it? And you're right. Like, Anthony was like this character that was so like almost like frivolous with his sex, because it wasn't that he's a womanizer really, but it's like he saw women as just kind of, being there and for duty and whatnot. And so to have him not really, where's the sex?
I know. And I've had someone say, like, look, if you're only watching Bridgerton for the sex, then go watch porn. And I'm like, look, season 1 set a precedent.
Exactly. And that's a really good point. It's like, no, like when it wasn't even that it bothered me necessarily. It was just so different from season 1.
That's what it is.
So you're expecting something in, it's the same show, but it does feel completely different. And that does include, lacking a lot of those steamy, sexy scenes.
Yeah.
So we won't talk about the sex for too much longer.
More of it later, but that's the gist.
Exactly. That was like my one takeaway from this season.
You're like, where is it? Yeah. I know. I'm like, look, Anthony Bridgerton was banging a girl against a tree. You can't just take that from me.
Yeah.
I digress. So, move on.
So let's kind of dive into what, like, all of the different little story threads in this season.
So many stories.
Yes. And another thing is, and we'll talk about this later, but I do feel like a lot of them don't really go anywhere. But
yes,
maybe that's because, it is season 2. It's not a beginning. It's not an end. So
it's the sequel. It's a sophomore. It's in a sophomore mini slump. It's okay.
Mini slump, not a total slump.
Not a total slump.
So we get Lady Kate and Edwina Sharma and their mother, and they're being basically kind of like courted, being taken care of by Lady Danbury, who to me was the MVP of this season. That woman had so many great scenes.
Lady Danbury is one of my favorites. She's up there with Violet. Like the mother is also like, gonna share that MVP crown as well.
Absolutely. And we'll definitely talk about, they have a scene together later that I just died for. Okay. It was so good. It is the new season and the queen is looking for her new diamond. So Kate is pretty much kind of this, she's just there to help Edwina along the way to find her, her match.
Yeah.
She's not there in London for herself. And we meet her when Anthony is riding by horseback, and they meet and they have this epic little chase or race rather. So my biggest question to you, Sarah, is tell me about your thoughts on Kate, Edwina, and the Sharmas.
Oh my God. I love Kate. As I've already said, I love Kate. I love A Taming of the Shrew story, which this basically is. The casting of Simone Ashley as Kate, I think, is absolutely inspired. I know her from Sex Education, and she plays a whole other character. And did I just blow your mind? That's who she is.
Yes. Oh my God.
And so I was like, oh, amazing. Because one thing I love about Bridgerton is it's like breaking the mold of what we think period pieces should be.
Exactly.
And so to turn this family into the Sharmas, but keeping their first names, I think is amazing. You bring in a whole other culture into this stuffy London society that isn't really there yet. Right. And they didn't just do it for the sake of doing it. There's a lot of moments of Indian culture throughout the entire thing. Especially when like they're getting ready for the weddings, or like the soaps, or when Kate is making chai tea, like, which are things that are just kind of like thrown about. And even with their cute little nicknames of Titi and Bon, it's just like, it's amazing. And I love this casting. Like, Kate is described as just brunette with dark hair. They're white women, but who cares? Like, and she's supposed to be so striking and smart and witty that like that she can go toe to toe with Anthony, and she absolutely does. The chemistry between the two, which we can get into in a minute,
Yes,
is incredible. The casting of Edwina is adorable. How stunning is she? And also how smart.
Yes.
Like, they made sure not to make her just pretty and dumb. She is the full package, which is why you can understand why Anthony is into it. He's like, oh, great. She checks all my boxes regardless. Yeah. And she's pretty to look at. Cool.
Yeah.
It doesn't bring the passion in him, but it's fine.
Yeah, you get why it would be happening and why he would be okay with, marrying her.
Absolutely.
There might not be that chemistry between him and Edwina, but like she's wise beyond her years. She understands who he is as a person, and it makes sense.
Yeah, every scene Edwina was in, and especially I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to the scene with the king. As we know, the king is not there mentally.
Right.
And it is one of the most heartbreaking things that the queen is still madly in love with him, and he's just not her husband. He has Alzheimer's and a handful of other things going on. And that beautiful scene Edwina has where she just, with a kind heart and a kind hand, talks to him and explains to him. That scene alone touched me and made me fall in love with a character that originally for me was very throwaway. As far as I'm going to try not to compare to the books so much, but
I want to know. I'm interested. Yeah. So in the book, you weren't as interested in her character.
She's to me, was a very throwaway character. There's a lot of changes. There's basically the entire story is different for Kate and Anthony getting together. And so there's a lot of changes. And Edwina very much to me is still that like perfect, ready to go. She always knew she wanted a smart husband, someone who was her equal and didn't look down on her. And I love that they still kept that essence. So with this casting of these characters, these actors, they fully embodied who I feel these characters are from the book to the screen. And I do love that they added for the mother to have her own story, and she's not just kind of there. They made it a drama moment, like very high society drama of like her marrying a man who already had a child and was like a busboy, she married for love and she's getting flack for it. And now she's back. And so I like that they were able to bring the mother in as well and not just have her be the mom that happens to be their mom.
Exactly. I agree with your sentiments completely. I think that I connected with this season on a deeper level because I loved the Sharmas. And like not just Kate, but Edwina and the mother as well. And I think the casting was perfect. What you said about them bringing in those cultural things to these characters and to the show, it really adds so much substance to Bridgerton that I think isn't in a lot of these period pieces because it's just the same old hoity-toity shit. Like, we're getting substance, and I love that. But with Kate, I think Simone Ashley and Jonathan Bailey, I think those two have such great chemistry with each other. And
incredible.
It was one of those things, I will say that their back and forth became a little tiresome to me.
It's my favorite.
I'm like, can you please just hate fuck each other already?
Yes. Okay. I see what you're saying. Okay. That, yes. It becomes a point where I needed a kiss. I needed something more than them just being like this close to each other all the time.
Just like breathing on each other. And I get it. It's like building the tension of like you wanting like them to get together. But like this whole season was just like them kind of going for and then not. It did become tiresome to me, but it did work because you could feel the chemistry between the two of them. And you understand why Anthony, like, this woman is so frustrating because she's so unlike any woman that he's met before, and you get it. And so that's why this season really worked. I loved everything you said about Edwina because there was a part in this season where I was like, I know that he doesn't love her, but like I want him to be with her because I loved the character so much and the actress Charindra Chandran. I probably butchered that, but she's so good and she's not just this like delicate little flower, you know, and she really comes into her own this season. And I just hope that as we continue and we're getting the different perspectives of the Bridgertons in future seasons, that we get to see this character grow. I hope they don't get rid of her.
Oh, me too. I had a fan say, I hope she ends up with Benedict, which I don't because I love Sophie and I can't wait for Sophie to show up. But I would love her to be a part of the Bridgertons somehow. But I love the guy, and I'm terrible with names, and anyone who knows me knows I'm terrible with names. The guy that she's originally talking to, that Kate hooks her up with, she's like, this is who you want. He's smart. He will take care of you, blah, blah. The one that at the horse races.
At the horse races, yeah. I don't remember what his name is either. But he comes back a little bit later on, right?
Yeah, and I hope that's actually who she ends up with, because I think from the beginning and even during my second watch, I was like, this is her match.
Yeah.
This is her love. Like, he's sweet and kind and smart. Yes. And I'm like, this is who she should be with. To your point of the back and forth between the two of them, I think every scene that Kate and Anthony are in together is freaking fireworks. From the moment when they're like, we first see her, like, how stunning was that shot of her like looking back through her cape?
Yes, amazing.
You know, the first time we see her,
like, this woman is a badass.
I was like, okay, I see you, Kate. I love that that's how they met versus just like at a ball. Like, give them a moment beforehand, give them a relationship. I love that.
Yes.
And, you know, even the conversation they have on the horses is just so good because she's like so quippy and being like, leave me alone. And he's like, nah, girl, I need to know more.
Yes.
And, you know, and the only reason she hates him is because he's having boy talk, right? Locker room talk with the fellas.
That she overhears, and she's like, this man, like, he's shady. He's like a womanizer, you know, like he doesn't want love. So yeah, you get why she hates him though.
Yeah. And then I love that scene though, because he's like, oh, you think my smile is pleasing? She's like, I think you think too highly of yourself. And I'm just like,
so good.
And then she basically tells him that he's as garbage as his horse for back riding and like walks away. And I was like,
so good.
So good. And so they have so many of those great moments. And I love when they go to the house together and Daphne's like, they're like having this quip back and forth about the dog. And like, you could just feel the like chemistry and the like, oh, the amazing tension. And even Daphne feels it. And she walks over, she's like, oh, you must be Miss Edwina. So good. So good. So good.
Yes. No, I completely agree. I think it's what makes this season so memorable, because I do think there are some issues with it.
Sure, it's not a perfect season by any means, but what they got right, they get right.
Yes, and I think it's the casting of Simone Ashley and Jonathan Bailey and the chemistry that they have. I think that's what makes this season.
Absolutely.
And also, it's in here that you say that Edwina was a throwaway character, because my biggest takeaway from this was how much I felt for all three of these ladies and their story. And I think that's what the show did best this season.
I agree. It was so good. I could talk about the Sharmas and Anthony and Kate and doing it like for hours, but let's
exactly. I could do.
We'll come back to it.
We definitely will. So then we have the Lady Whistledown mystery, which was a mystery in season 1. And then now it's not, because we know it's, spoiler alert, Penelope.
I know, if you didn't finish season 1, I don't know why you're here.
Exactly. So we have Penelope's whole storyline, and we kind of get to see, you know, the inner workings of her being Lady Whistledown and going to the printers and working with Genevieve Delacroix. And I thought all of that was really interesting. I do think that it took, because we know it's Penelope, do you think it kind of took away from that like air of mystery, almost like how we were talking about with Gossip Girl? Like, we already know who Gossip Girl is, you know, it takes that like that mystery away a little bit.
I think it was when it happened, because just to let you know, we don't find out it's Penelope until book 4. 3? Book 3. Oh, I had
Book
to do it in
3,
alphabetical
okay.
order. A, B, C. Book 3 is when we, nope, 4. I was right, because we start with Daphne. I'm so sorry. That's difficult when you start with the D name of the family and then you go alphabetical. Colin's book, whatever, is the book that we find out who Lady Whistledown is.
Okay.
So that's a long time in a book series. So the fact that it was changed to the end of season 1, I was kind of like, oh, interesting. I wasn't mad at it, but I was very curious as to why. And I feel like this season is the why.
Okay.
In a way.
So you think that they constituted that change in the story?
Yes, because what else are they going to do with Penelope? To be honest,
it's true.
So Penelope is Lady Whistledown. If without us knowing that fact, without like the constant upset of hers, because now it's also harder because Eloise is out. And so Eloise is constantly around. And so it's messed up her entire scheme.
Yeah.
So I love, as you said, we got to see the inner workings of Lady Whistledown and how it worked with like her writing, and then the guy, the footman, like with his lights, the printers. And I love seeing Penelope be kind of a badass and use her her natural Irish accent, because she's an Irish actress, to be like, oh, I'm the lady, my lady is Lady Whistledown, when it's really her. I think it's so cool and so smart. But without knowing who she is, she would have had absolutely nothing to do except for pine for Colin this season. And that doesn't make her likable.
Correct. And that's actually a really good point, because when I was watching it, I was like, they should have kept this more of a mystery, because I think that did add a layer to the first season. But you're totally right, because it was interesting getting to see this side of Penelope. And I think without it, like, it would have been nothing. And obviously this character throughout the seasons, because I mean, I would assume that something between her and Colin happens, correct?
Something.
We won't go that spoilery. Okay.
It might be my second favorite book of the bunch.
Got it. So, but yeah, so I did really like it, and I think that there was still tension, because she's trying to keep it from Eloise, and then we also have the queen being like, we need to find who this woman, like who Lady Whistledown is, and like it definitely added tension, like her trying to track down who it was. And we'll get to that a little bit later, but I think that it definitely adds some air of mystery still to the show.
Yeah. And they have, like, they're just writing things for the Featheringtons, because the Featheringtons really aren't a part of the series. So I appreciate that they are like fully bringing out this world of families and characters. And because of Penelope, they've made the Featheringtons a thing.
Yes.
And with last season and the death of their father, and like having to figure out what happens with them from here, at least like they gave Penelope a little bit more to do.
Yes, definitely.
Otherwise.
And I don't know. I just think we'll get to Colin in a second. But let's go with that. I think that leads us to the Featheringtons. And I think that this story is really interesting. This is one of the things that kept me engaged in this season.
Wow.
Is like, what's Lady Featherington's first name?
That's all. That's what we're gonna go with, Lady Featherington.
Lady Featherington. So I didn't know how to feel about this woman through this season. At first, I was like, I hate this lady. She's just this stuck-up woman, and then she has this incredible scene at the end. But we'll talk about the heir and everything first. Yeah. So they left on a cliffhanger in season 1 that, they showed like the piece of paper, like, this is who the heir is. Yeah. And then this season, I'm like, I feel like that wasn't really like a cliffhanger. Like, we've never before. Like, had they even met him before, or they just kind of knew of him?
She knew the dad who died, like the one whose name was on the paper. Lady Featherington knows him, and that's why she's like, he's a horrible, crotchety old man. He'll come in and kick us out. That's why she was so worried. And then you get his son because he died. So that had come from the Americas and has like gem mines and is just like a scheme artist, like a freaking con artist. Yeah. I thought I was like, who is this man? Who is this choice? And I agree with you. I have never really cared for Lady Featherington until this season. And then I was like, oh, I actually like her now.
Yeah. And
It's
I
happening.
think the scheming between like her and this Jack
Jack.
guy, I think Jack, who is now, the heir of the estate and whatnot, and he's supposed to have all of this money, and she wants him to like marry her daughter, even though that's a little scandalous, but this
It
show
was.
is about scandal.
It is.
Um,
Your
and
cousins. It's okay.
it's okay.
Gross.
But I think the whole scheming, once she realizes that he doesn't have any money, and this whole engagement like is actually a terrible idea because he was trying to get in, like marry into money.
The Cressida, the
I,
worst. The worst.
it's the worst. And
Cressida,
I
the
liked
worst.
this story.
Yeah. I did too. They bit this a little bit from a different story.
Oh,
But which is it's like they're biting a little bit from other books and like different people's stories. So but so I'm just like, oh, interesting. What are we gonna be left with? But I agree, yeah, the whole thing, and like when she finds out that like he was trying to marry Cressida for money, and like how they become partners in crime in this whole
mhm.
thing, in tricking all of the people of society
Yes.
into believing that he's got these gem mines full of money, and they throw this huge ball to show how great they are. And she was always one step ahead.
Yes, and
Always one step ahead.
that's why I love her so much now. And I mean, her being like,
Mother.
yes, I'm a mother. Like that scene, I was like, yes, she killed that scene. And you realize what kind of like a nasty, slimy little weasel he is, because all of a sudden, he's supposed to marry what is her Philippa? Is that her
Philippa.
name?
No, it's the other one. Philippa's marrying that other dude.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. So one of the Featherington daughters, that's not Penelope or Philippa.
Yeah.
So he's supposed to be marrying her, and then all of a sudden he's like coming on to Lady Featherington. And I was like, okay, you're a slime ball. Like already you're a scam artist, but now you're trying to get with the mom when you're trying to marry the daughter. Like, no, did not like him. So when she was able to turn this whole scheme on its head and like be like, you're leaving, I'm taking the money, you're going to be a disgraced person, like loved it.
Yeah, she's like, everyone will feel sorry for us because I'm just a woman.
Yeah.
How would I know? I was being taken advantage of.
It's
Me
brilliant.
and my daughters, because she used that, like what people think of women during this time, to her advantage. And
Absolutely.
like she killed it. And I cannot wait to see what happens. Like there has to be another heir, but we'll find out because women can't own property at this point in time.
Terrible.
It was just so good. The way that entire thing played out. It took a while. That's one of my biggest complaints about this season is everything took a little too long
Agreed.
to happen. And that's from like this big moment with the mom and Jack's whole scheme falling apart to Kate and Anthony, like that, like everything just like a little, like an episode or two too long.
Right. Yeah, the pacing was a little off for me. And I think, like we brought up, like there's so many stories going on, and I know that they're trying to bridge the gap between all the seasons, and we're getting, a little bit of Benedict and a little bit of Colin, but it felt like we were getting a little bit, but it wasn't enough to be a whole story arc.
Yeah.
So
it was like weird seed planting, right?
yes.
Like Benedict, if we can go there real quick, Benedict doesn't know what he wants to do with his life. And so he gets into art school, which we then learn is because Anthony paid for him to get into art school.
Right.
And so now he's off at his cabin, which is actually like a big thing. So I was like, oh, this is where we're ending him. Amazing.
Right.
That's how we're going to get into next season. And like Colin is back from all of his wild adventures and then goes and sees the pregnant girl from last season that he really liked, just to get closure. Was he thinking he was going to steal her away? She has 2 children with Sir Philip.
Yeah, that scene, or that whole thing, I was just like, where did that lead? It was like a loose story thread,
Yeah, it's a way to bridge him back to Penelope, because he's always seen Penelope as a friend, always seen Penelope as the girl next door that's just kind of always there. And I think this was their way of maybe helping push him towards seeing Penelope as a little more.
That absolutely makes sense. And that, I think what you said about seed planting, that's what a lot of this season felt like. It's like, okay, we're getting little seeds that are being planted, but we're not really getting anything that's being fully cultivated yet. So this season feels like a lot of planning ahead and,
Yeah.
not a lot of story besides what's going on with Kate and
Yeah. It feels
with
like a big setup season. Did you ever watch Sons of Anarchy?
I did watch Sons of Anarchy, but only like not in order,
Okay.
which is terrible. I would always just pop in and watch an episode here or there.
They had a whole season in Ireland, and it was
Okay.
an entire setup season for the following season. So nothing happens. It's really boring, but this wasn't really boring. But you know what I mean? Like nothing really happens. It's kind of whatever. But then the next season's amazing because it set up all this stuff. And I feel like that's what, unfortunately, one of my favorite stories turned into for this season is it became this big setup season with Kate and Anthony thrown in, this magic of Kate and Anthony thrown in the middle of it.
Right. And I think so. This is kind of how I look at it. So the first season really felt in the grand scheme of things like a limited series almost. And even Regé-Jean Page had said like that's why he was interested in taking the role because he thought it was kind of just going to be one story arc was done, and that's why he's not back for this season.
To be honest, I didn't miss him at all, so it's fine.
Wait, what was that?
I didn't miss him at all, so it's fine.
Are you being sarcastic?
No, I'm being serious.
You didn't miss Simon?
Not at all. The story's not about Simon. The story's not about Daphne. And I think when we saw Daphne and Simon, if it became a big weird thing about them and then like banging in a library while the family's outside playing croquet, then it would take away from what was actually happening. So I don't think it was actually a bad choice. And I don't think him being gone is a big deal.
Yes, I completely agree. Seeing him would have been almost distracting from like what was going on in this season. So I think it made sense. And to have Daphne there also made sense too without Simon. So I think it works.
She's the Bridgerton. So
exactly. And she's there for her siblings, but I think the first season very much so felt like a limited series, whereas now that it's been picked up for multiple seasons and they know it's going to go on for a while, this next season now felt like, okay, well, we have tons of seasons to tell stories. We need to plant all the seeds now to continue to continue on. So I do think that this season does suffer a little bit from that.
Because of that. Like nothing really happens because they got to set it up, but then they have to make the Anthony Kate story happen. They're like, but we have 8 episodes to tell it. I'm like, yeah, well, maybe you should have made some things happen sooner, guys. And then you would have anyway.
So luckily, even though all of these story threads, we can kind of see the beginnings of them and, how they're going to start, it's going to be interesting to see where they lead. They haven't really gone anywhere yet in this season. Luckily, the Kate and Anthony storyline is good enough, and I think it's great enough to keep this season absolutely worth watching.
I agree completely. They did with them, like as I said, I think every scene they were in is magical, whether it was them just going toe to toe with each other. From one of my favorite scenes in the book with the Pall Mall game when he's trying to court Edwina Moore and brings them over to the house. I also think that the season was able to give Anthony a lot more depth than we were given in the books, because we do get to see how the father died this season, which is a book thing. And it's, something so, isn't that insane that something so small as a bee sting could take someone out because they go into anaphylactic shock and don't have, it's EpiPens and stuff.
That I'm allergic to bees. So it was triggering for me, that whole episode.
Wow.
It was triggering. And I think some people might be like, oh, he died from a bee sting. I'm like, no, actually, this totally makes sense.
Yes.
And it's scary, and that
My
whole
mother's
episode
allergic to bees. So,
so I think that I think you're totally right. Like that whole episode really added so much depth to Anthony, and knowing why he is the way that he is, how he feels like, the weight of the world is on his shoulders, how at such a young age, he had to be the one as the oldest, Bridgerton child to take over, where all of his siblings just kind of get to live their own life and, passions and do whatever they want. He's always felt this sense of duty. And that includes, you know, getting married to someone who he might not love, but what just makes sense. So I really loved all of that character development in this season.
Me too. It adds more to him than, like, as I said, than in the book. Because in the book, he's not there when he dies. He comes home and sees Daphne crying and their dad is dead.
I'm glad they changed.
I'm glad they changed. That's a change I absolutely loved, because him being like going on this hunt with his father and having this amazing bonding moment and talking about his siblings and growing up and how they'll go and do more things. And he's picking hyacinths to bring his wife, you know, and name of their daughter, which I think is fun. And you know, he gets stung by a bee and it happens so fast. And then having to deal with his grieving mother and his mother, who then has to give birth to Hyacinth, you know, and then having to make the decision because Hyacinth's inverted. And he's like, okay, I'm a maybe 18-year-old boy, maybe. And I have to make this decision. And then as you said, the weight of the world, the weight of the family, the weight of everything, which also explains why he rebelled so much and for so long.
Right.
Because he did it for like a decade, you know, the family didn't need him to step up yet. And then Mama Violet was like, look, last season, she's like, it's time. Your sisters are now coming out. You need to step up. You need to take care of them.
Get it together.
And so he just went from one extreme to the next.
Yeah.
And it's completely understandable. And I find him even more likable. I've already loved Anthony from season 1 because Jonathan Bailey just freaking kills it as this character. Kills it. Took a character that I kind of hated to someone I absolutely love.
I mean, this is not an easy character to play because, and I mean, even Daphne says it, you know, like when he died, you completely changed, and who he changed into is not the most likable person. She even says like, you stopped laughing. Like she's never heard him laugh again, you know? So like to take a character that is not really likable, and to make him likable, you know, he's done a really good job.
And then he has this beautiful moment with Violet, which is why Violet for me is always the MVP of the series. She's the MVP of the books for me because she is exactly the same. She is a strong woman, a smart woman, and she always is ready to wrangle her gaggle of children. And she always she knows she raised them better than they act. And she is not afraid to talk to them about it. And
so true.
Has this beautiful moment with him sitting on the bench at their, like I want to call it the memorial, because is it the memorial for the father at the house, at the gravestone basically, and is like, you know, it makes me really sad that you see love as like your greatest weakness instead of your greatest strength. And he's just like, I cannot, and he's like, I cannot be the cause of that much pain because he saw what his mother went through. Yeah. And he's like, you weren't there. You were basically catatonic. Yeah. And I love that we got to actually see that and not just hear that in a lot of these lovely flashbacks they gave us this season.
Completely agree. So I think it's so interesting, and I think it really adds such a layer of depth to him, and you kind of understand as an audience where he's coming from, because he never wants to feel the pain, that same amount of pain again that he felt when his father passed away. So he's okay to just, you know, not fall in love, and he's okay to just, you know, marry some woman, because if he does that, then he's never going to feel that pain again. So you kind of understand where he's coming from as a character, because before I didn't really get it. I didn't get why he was the way that he was. But as this season progresses, you really understand Anthony and where he's coming from.
Mm-hmm. It was done really well and really smart, and I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah. And you're totally right about Violet having just so many good scenes. I guess we'll talk about it. The Lady Danbury scene, like when I needed that scene because there's so much going on in the wedding episode. Oh my God. For them to just like sit there and kind of like laugh at the ridiculousness and the gravity of everything that's going on, but just to like laugh about the peacocks attacking them and like biting off their hand. like I just
Thank you.
Such a good scene, and those two actresses together, I'm like, I want more scenes with the two of them. They're gold.
They're magic. They have such utter respect for each other.
Yes.
And they see each other on the same level. They trust each other to like the 100th degree.
Yeah.
And they are just so funny. I love that they don't mind scheming together. They're like, let's make this a thing.
Exactly.
So good. They're so good.
Yes. And let's talk about the wedding episode, because I think, to me at least, that was the pinnacle of this season. I think that's where I almost felt like there was a lot going on at the beginning, and then it was like building all to that wedding, and that's when it was just like we get to see like Edwina come into her own, and all of these secrets come out, and finally Anthony and Kate kiss, and there's like that episode was so good. And then I do feel like after the wedding episode, it kind of fizzled out a little bit. What do you think of that?
I don't disagree. We get this. I am. Okay, this is where I'm about to rant, everyone. So just
let's do it.
Buckle up. So in the book, and I hate in the book being that person. I was waiting for the bumblebee stinging scene just to back up from the wedding a little bit, because I think this is why this all happened.
Okay.
The bumblebee sting. He thinks Kate gets stung by a bee. He's freaking out, right? And she's like, it's just a bee, calm down. And that's their moment where they realize that they have actually have feelings for each other. That line between love and hate has been crossed into the love line, love side. In the book, and I was like, I was waiting because I was like, how are they going to do this? So that happens. She gets stung by a bee, but it's lower. And bro, like literally like rips her shit off and like sucks on her breast to get the venom out so she doesn't die, and they get caught in a compromising position, and then they have to get married. That is what happened. Yes, so once that didn't happen, I was like, where are we going with this now? I don't know anymore. So then they are betrothed, two people who hate each other, who as we have seen in the episodes, get betrothed because her virtue has been compromised. People have seen this moment happen. They think Anthony was trying to take advantage of her. Like, it's a whole thing. So this season
is completely different. Like, you weren't kidding.
I was not kidding. So this is also why there's like the lack of sex scenes. This is why. So this became similar. I think they may have done it because maybe they worried that it'd be too similar to Daphne's story, because it is a little bit of a wear down story. Right. So they spend all this time together. They have lovely moments in the library, and everyone's gonna be a little sad don't exist. The library is a big deal. When she was in the library in that scene and he came in, I was like, we're gonna get it, and then we didn't, and I was upset. But eventually they realize that she realizes she's in love with him, he realizes he's in love with her, and we get happily ever after with them. So they decided to instead do this full-on betrayal storyline between the sisters, and I don't love it. Right. So like you see them fighting their feelings. You see the library scene where he's like, my virtue, where he's basically saying, I'm going to marry your sister and I'm going to sleep with you anyway. Like, that's what's coming. Terrible. That's the whole conversation. Yeah. And she's like, maybe you shouldn't marry my sister. I don't know what to say to you right now. Yeah. So the fact that Anthony still goes through with his wedding really upset me, because I feel like he's better than that as a character. And I think that goes against who he is as a character in the show, as well as the show that they gave us alone. I'm not even going to compare to the book in that moment.
Right. That's shocking to me. So that literally changes everything about the book. So they really made some story choices here.
100%. It is completely different. I was like, what are we doing?
The wedding never happened in the books.
He never goes to marry Edwina. None of that ever happens. Like, literally that moment happens, and Edwina's not even upset about it. She's like, yeah, I mean, that happened and it's okay. And, it's whatever. I'll find someone else. Like, she doesn't even care.
So I do think, though, that it does... This storyline gives a lot more weight than to Edwina's character.
Absolutely, it does. That's why I said she was such a throwaway character, because that
Mhm.
all happens and then she kind of just goes away and it becomes Kate and Anthony and their like tension and fire.
Right. I mean, once again, I haven't read the book, but I think that I kind of like this.
Yeah,
Like,
I think it's really
I'm
interesting.
sure as someone who, loves the books, I'm sure you were like really thrown off by this. Like,
Yeah. I was like, I don't understand. That's why I had to watch it twice. So I said the first time was to get over the shock value that they
right.
completely changed it, so that I could then actually watch it to enjoy it, versus the opposite where I was like, I don't understand what just happened.
Especially when you're watching the show and you're like expecting him to like be sucking on her boobie like after a bee sting, and you're like, where is it? What's happening?
Like, is it gonna happen? I was waiting for it. It didn't happen. But let's dive into back to the show and away from the shock of my life of that time. The wedding itself, like I said, I was really surprised and saddened that they made Anthony go through with it.
Yes.
I thought the wedding was stunning. I loved that they did a lot of like Hindi rituals, kind of wedding rituals beforehand. They have those like lovely moments where she's still fighting her feelings for him. She's like, I'm just gonna leave. It's like, I won't be around. And then she gives Edwina her mother's bangles for her wedding. She's like, I'm never gonna have a wedding, so wear my bangles. And then Edwina's like, no, these are for you. And then we get that amazing moment where Edwina finally puts the pieces together.
Yes.
And because she like is fidgeting, she's like, I can't look at him, and he's like staring at her the whole wedding. I'm like, bro,
so awkward.
What are you doing? Everyone can see you. Everyone can see you.
Yeah, and terrible.
Like, she drops her bangle and he goes to pick it up and they have that moment. And I'm just like, the whole time. Like, oh God. I love it so much. And then she's like, what? And like, she storms off.
Yes.
I don't know.
I don't know. I just loved this episode because it gave me everything that I was kind of missing it felt like it was taking forever to get to that wedding, and the wedding finally happened. And I think it really, that episode packed a punch, because not only do we have all of that happening and the scandal of like, will she, won't she, marry him, and Kate hiding in the closet. And then we also have the queen, sending out all of these like spies almost to try to like track down who Lady Whistledown is. Yeah. So this season, that episode delivered on so many things that I was, wanting and expecting from this season. So then finally the kiss happens. And we now know, Edwina's come into her own. She's like, basically like, how dare you, sister? Like, I'm not going to let anyone kind of dictate who I'm going to be.
Yeah.
I'm going to make my own path. So I'm not going to marry you, Anthony. And then, then they have their kiss, which is great.
Right.
And then the next two episodes happen. And
okay.
I don't know how I feel about it.
I'm like, okay. So this wedding should have happened an episode or two earlier.
Agreed.
There was no reason to drag it out this long.
Yes.
I agree with you. Like, that back and forth I loved the back and forth, but again, it went on a little too long. And then the wedding happens and the drama happens. And then again, yeah, as you said, like the next two episodes really kind of fizzle. Like, she does get in an accident, so that is true. Not completely true, but that does a version of that happens. And that, like, because and Anthony professes his love for her eventually because of it. But can we just take a minute to talk about the finally getting of a sex scene in that next episode? It's the next. You didn't like it? Okay.
No, I hated it. I was not feeling it. I'm sorry. I thought it was so shoddily edited. And it was so weird. Like, I get what they were doing with like pulling like the pantyhose down, and like I just thought it was so poorly edited that I wasn't feeling it.
So cute though.
I just like I felt their chemistry the whole season, and then when the sex scene happened, I was like, oh, I don't know. I felt it like it was kind of clunky.
Yeah, I think the flashback to it was better than the actual scene.
Agreed.
The
Absolutely.
flashback to it, I grasped my pearls.
Yes.
And I was
that's what I wanted.
I was like, why didn't we have this moment? Because it was like poor Phoebe Never, right? Daphne has to be buck naked her entire. Not that I'm just like, give me naked ladies. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But she was butt naked her entire season.
Yeah.
Banging the Duke from episode 4, basically. You know what I mean? And this girl gets away with still wearing lingerie the whole time. Yeah. And then, eventually we get a boob, but like whatever.
We get like a little boobage at the very, in the very last episode, and it's like kind of a sexy, not really. Anyways, the whole point, and like I hope people who are watching this aren't like, these are crazy people who just want sex. Like, no, that's not the point. No. The point is we expected it coming from season 1 because, like you said, Lady Danbury was, naked a lot of the time. There was a lot of steamy sex scenes. The show was hot, like, it's like one of those, I don't know, it was like a fantasy almost, Yeah. And then for this season to take 7 episodes for you to get a sex scene between the two of them, I get, building that tension of will they or won't they? And then like, then you get the sex scene, but then the sex scene didn't really deliver. And then it's like, that's it. That's all there is to the sexiness of the show. So for me, like this season gets like a -1 or 2 points for sexy. Like,
I mean, I don't disagree. I think that leading up to their sex moment was great. That whole conversation of like, you need to stop doing what you're doing. I was just like, oh my God.
I loved that. Like, because he's like telling her to do something and she doesn't want to do it. And it's like,
he knows like she can't tell her what to do. She's going to do the opposite. And he knows that. He knows.
Loved all of that. So the chemistry, the writing of their back and forth, fantastic.
Yeah. But even their kiss is great. No, but then it gets into like, Anthony is the biggest rake. He is the #1 rake. He's like, I will teach you things, and then we kind of get, as you said, like a shoddy edited. It was edited really bad. It was edited like a montage. Yeah. It wasn't edited with love or passion. It was very strange. And then we get the flashback to it, which is that, as I said, I clutched myself because, you get that moment where he's just like staring in her eyes at a second. Yeah. That's like,
that is the only, like, lovers of the Bridgerton, that kind of side of Bridgerton, that is all they're going to get, really, is that little flashback moment. That's really, that's really all you get this season. So in that way, I think people who watched it and enjoyed it just for that kind of like, like, almost not like 50 Shades of Grey type thing, but like just watching it to kind of like, just get your rocks off a little bit. Like people are going to be disappointed.
Agreed, 100%. Because that's all we get. And they split the sex scene into 2 and they put the best parts in the flashback. And I'm like, maybe again, chalk it to COVID. I don't know. Yeah. Like, because the production was shut down multiple times and they were like, well, gotta get it out. But then I'm also really mad that I didn't get a Kate and Anthony wedding. You're going to give me an Edwina wedding? You're not going to give me the wedding I actually want? Yeah. You didn't give me a wedding. I'm honestly like, we were like, that's when the show ended. I was like, I didn't get a wedding. Yeah. I was so upset about it.
I think that's a really good, jumping off point to that last episode, because I want to talk about the last episode.
Let's talk about it.
I felt like it was, really rushed. I felt like it wasn't a satisfying conclusion to the season.
No, not at all. It was super rushed. He like comes over, he's like, I'm going to marry you. She's like, no, you're not. I'm still leaving. Yeah. And she's like, because he wants to marry out of duty because he doesn't love me. And then she gets in the accident. And then she's like, he's the one who saves her. And like, and then he realizes
when he does say that he loves her, and then she, reciprocates, You know, like I thought there was going to be some kind of like, but we can't get married, you know, because there's been so much like buildup of why they can't be in a relationship. And then all of a sudden it's like, actually, yeah, we can.
Yeah. I mean,
And then all of a sudden they're married.
I know. I did love in that last scene. Oh God, what song was it? Do you remember what song it was? It was
Wrecking Ball.
Wrecking. I came in like a wreck. I thought that was cute because she's like, "What if we dance because I'm feeling lightheaded and you're the only one nearby?" Because like, I love that they're dancing and everyone's like, "Oh, this is the scandal," and I appreciate that Edwina was like, "No," and it took like with the sister relationship because it is very much a sister story this time around.
It is,
as
and
much as
I can appreciate that.
And you know, obviously Edwina's pissed because she's been lied to. She's lied to about why she's there. She's lied to about the dowry from the dead dad's family, you know, that whole thing. And then she's lied to because the man she thinks she loves, which I don't actually think she was in love with him. The man that she is supposed to marry is actually in love with her sister, and her sister's in love with him, and it's a mess. Yes. And she feels betrayed on multiple levels. So then when her sister almost dies, she like realizes what's actually important, and they're able to like have a real conversation about it without the emotions attached. And she's like, "You did all of this for what you want out of your life, and you did it for me. This is for you. You deserve it too." And so I kind of love that she was able to they were able to figure out what's important and push a lot of things aside. And you know, she stood up for her sister, was like, "I actually think they look beautiful." And like the queen's like, "No, they didn't get married because I didn't want the wedding to happen." And you know, like they did all these things, and I loved that dance scene. I think
I loved it too.
Together, I loved it.
So I'm really happy that you brought these little plot points up because I did love these. I loved the conversation between Edwina and Kate, and I loved how she kind of said something along the lines of like, we've both been playing these roles or these parts that aren't us. And I don't really like the parts that we're playing. So let's just be us. I loved that kind of like come to Jesus moment for both of them that they had. And then that whole ball sequence and them dancing with, I'm pretty sure it was Wrecking Ball.
I think it was Wrecking Ball. I believe you're right.
It's one of those I think it was absolutely ingenious for them to have orchestral covers of hit songs. I think it's great. I think that's one moment where it really worked. Yeah. And that whole dance number when he was like, "Just look into my eyes, no one else matters." Like that's what I loved it. And then the queen taking full "Yep, that was me." I was like, "It ain't working." And then her being like, "Do you want I have a prince?" You know, he's a prince. Yeah, loved all of that. I love the queen. What's her name? Golda Rochevelle. Anyways, that actress is amazing. And the queen is so fierce. Every time she pops up, I feel like she brings such energy to the show. And what is she doing? Cocaine?
She's doing I think it's tobacco. I think it's I believe that's what it is.
I was like, that's so random. She's just doing cocaine or something. Yeah. But okay, tobacco.
It's like it's snuff, so it's like dip.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, yeah. I was a little weirded out that it makes more sense now.
I thought it was cocaine too first, and Kiki is the one who was like, "No, Sarah, it's not cocaine."
No. Get it right. But yeah, I just love her character, and I love how that kind of bridged the gap to Edwina might get to marry a prince now, that could be an interesting storyline for later on. So all of that I loved. When I say that I think I wasn't satisfied with the last episode, I think it was the last 5 minutes. Or the last 10 minutes. It just felt so rushed.
Yeah, it's super rushed. They're canoodling in bed together, and they're like, "Oh, it's so great. We should go see our family." And then they go downstairs and they have cute little moments. I do love the change you see in Anthony now that he's able to be with her. Yes. And I wish that they should have scooted everything up an episode or two.
Agreed.
And then we would have gotten an episode or two at the end of all the things that book readers wanted. Everything that show watchers would want from the first season. We could actually see the full change in Anthony and how happy they are together. The fact that I didn't get a wedding, like, give me a grander wedding for the two of them. I'm so mad about not getting a wedding.
Yeah.
So mad about it.
The wedding, the Edwina wedding should have been in episode like 3 or 4. And then there could have been the fallout of that could have been the rest of the season. And I think this whole season would have worked so much better.
Yeah. Let them, like, the fallout happen and they're just banging in the library before they're married. Having more like moments that they're you know, like, let it be a bigger betrayal and not just that they have feelings for each other. You know, like, it didn't. Yeah, if you're gonna do that, you gotta do that.
Exactly.
I was just like, I'm so mad. I'm like, give me the wedding.
Give me the wedding, damn it.
I wanted. How dare you? How dare you? It's like really how I feel.
So we also have a lot going on with Whistledown at the end here. Yes, and the queen thinks that Whistledown is actually Eloise because she was caught going to town when she was really going to see Theo, which I love this whole storyline.
I do too.
Even though I don't. The actress who plays Eloise, I feel like, is playing the character very one note. Like, she's very like fidgety and like I don't know. Like, I'm not buying her just yet.
I don't disagree. I loved her in season 1, and then I feel like somehow she is doing the exact same thing, but even more heightened.
Exactly.
Does that make sense? She was a little awkward in the beginning, and she doesn't like all these things, and then all of a sudden it just became like, I don't like all these things, but now I don't like all these things.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like, what's happening?
Like, rein it in a little bit. So, but she did show some real range at the end when when Eloise finds out that Penelope is Whistledown. Oh, so I'm like, I can see that the actress is talented, but I just don't really love what she was doing with the character for most of the season.
I don't disagree with you.
But I'm interested to see, does she go back? Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I'm like totally jumping forward, but does she get back with Theo?
Theo doesn't exist. This entire storyline doesn't exist, so I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, I really like this storyline. I like the idea of her, like, you know, like being with, you know, someone who's, you know, poor or like simple folk or whatever they want to call them. Like, I like that idea. It makes sense for Eloise.
Give me a Sybil storyline. And you know what I mean?
Give it to me. Yes.
Yes. Like, if you watch Downton Abbey, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Sybil was in love with the footman and like they get married and they like give me that. I would love that storyline. I hate Eloise's book and I hate her storyline and I hate the man she ends up with. Okay. So if they were gonna change anything, change that one because he's
change the whole damn book. You pretty much did it with this season. Do it for Eloise's book too. Give us more Theo.
Justice for Eloise is how I feel. Because she just deserves better as a character than what she was given. I hated it. It took me like 6 months to finish. I hated it so much.
Oh, wow. I really hope they do change it then. Because I think, like, if they do, you know, bring back Theo, because I know that they kind of, like, had their outs at the end of this. But, like, I thought Theo was really cute. And I love how he gave her the books and everything. And was like, you know, when she asked if, like, have you been thinking of me? In, like, a really awkward way. And he's like, yeah, I had these books for you. So, I don't know. I'd like to see more of Theo.
Me too. I hope they bring him back. I loved it. And I feel for Penelope. Like, she is making a name for herself and she was trying to do this thing that everyone loves and also hates her for. And she, in order to save her friend and not out herself, she had to do one of the most horrible things she's ever done.
Yeah.
And some people I love her. I love her in the show and I love her in the book. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's rough out there for Penelope right now. That's all I have to say. Like, she gets her dance with Colin, and then she decides, you know, she has to do this horrible thing, but then she's stopping Whistledown forever, and then Colin starts talking shit on her. Not really, but like saying, like, I would never. Or what does he say about dancing with her?
He basically called her a friend, didn't he? I don't remember.
Yeah, like basically,
it out. He's mean to her.
I just like I'm sorry, like Colin's an ass, and he's so oblivious to her feelings for him, and he's just like he flirts with her, and then he's like, no, like you're just a friend. I don't know. I don't like Colin at all.
Oh, I like Colin. Colin gets better. Hopefully, he gets better. I should say hopefully gets better. Because, you know, I love a Dawson's Creek story.
Yeah.
I compare everything to something else that's already happened.
It's okay.
For the Taming of the Shrew story.
Yeah.
Benedict's is an Ever After story.
Right. That's what I've heard, kind of like a Cinderella story.
So
Which
I'm
one?
like,
What's Colin's story like?
Dawson's Creek is what I call it because
it's Dawson's Creek. Okay.
You know what I mean? It's the girl next door that you like all of a sudden one day you realize that you're like, oh
yeah. I love her.
I had no idea. Yeah, so I think Colin will get better. I like that actor had a bit of a glow up though, in my opinion. If you look at Colin from season 1 to now, like he's taller, he's like leaned out, he's got that like chiseled jaw now with the facial hair. I was like, good job, good for you.
The fact I don't remember what he looked like in season 1, but the fact like I remember what he looked like in season 2, even though I just saw it, but like there's a difference. Like I definitely I'll have to go back and look though. Yeah, I'm into a glow up for sure.
Yeah, he had a little bit of a glow up. I was like, good. You know, it's like not quite like the Neville Longbottom level of glow up, but you know,
that's a whole different story.
That's a whole other. That's like wild. But no, yeah. Penelope, we shall see what happens with this lovely girl.
So Eloise, we're left at the end here. So she decides, I mean, Eloise like wants nothing to do with her anymore because of what she's done. And Eloise decides she's going to be Whistledown again. And I kind of like how they went from Penelope narrating to all of a sudden, like the moment she gets the pen and paper, all of a sudden it's like, Dear Rita, and Julie Andrews' voice.
Exactly. It's like, Dear Rita. Did you think I'd be gone forever? Goodbye. Yeah. I do hope that they keep a lot of that storyline. We'll see what happens. But I'm excited for season 3. I'm as disappointed, and I'm so torn on this season. Let me back up real quick. Because there are things that I think they did incredibly well. And then there's things that I just think they could have done better. So I really, the things that I enjoyed, I loved. Yeah. And then the things that they let me down on, they really let me down on. So it's like, did I like the season? I did. Am I sad that they didn't do some of one of my favorite stories really justice? Also, yes. Yeah. They used it, as we've talked about earlier, as a seed planting season, unfortunately, and it suffers because of it. But with those seeds planted, I'm curious. I think it would be very easy to combine Eloise and Benedict's story together and then end it with Colin if they don't get any more seasons. Because like every season's its own story, right? So now I hope, as much as I really do hope we get more Kate and Anthony and Edwina, it's very possible that they won't be around a ton because they're gonna have to make up some drama for them because, you know, like it doesn't exist anymore outside of the canon books.
Right.
Similarly to what they did with what's her Daphne? I was like, what's her name?
Daphne and Simon.
They kind of go off and have their own lives. So,
and that will be. This is why I don't know. I'll be a little bit disappointed if they do what they did in season 1. So season 1 to me felt very complete, and so I was okay with them going into this season kind of having a different story. But if then they go into season 3 and all of a sudden it's Benedict, right, that we concentrate on in book 3. So if we're just concentrating solely on Benedict and we don't get a lot of Anthony and Kate and Edwina and all of that, like I think I'm going to be a little bit disappointed because there are a lot of things that I feel like need more expanding from this season that you know, they delivered a little bit, but they could have delivered more. So I'm going to be disappointed if they kind of just end it here on this note.
I know, me too. Because of the way it was done. If they did what we just talked about and like scooted everything back a couple of episodes, it very much could have been similar to season 1 where everything would have been wrapped up in a pretty bow in a package. Right. With a couple of nuggets setting up the next season.
Yeah. But they didn't really do that. So that's a bummer.
That's a bummer. It's a bummer.
Also, I felt season 1, they left just the right amount of cliffhangers to make me like, ooh, I can't wait for season 2. Whereas this season, there's like cliffhangers, kind of like, will Penelope, what will she do next? Will her and Eloise become friends again? There's like little kind of tiny cliffhangers, but there's nothing really like, oh, I'm so interested to see where it goes,
How do we not get Benedict having more orgies?
Yeah. That's the Benedict storyline to me was like, I get that he's going to be in season 3. We need to see him, but like everything that he did in this season seemed inconsequential.
Yeah. Like, he has that moment with Madame Delacroix. He's like, oh, are you going to be at the party tonight? And she's like, nah, bro, I'm out. And, and like, but he could have gone that part. It could have been a party that led him to meeting instead of him going to the new bar.
Right.
I don't know. Like, I'm chalking up a lot of that to COVID. I'm just going to give it COVID, because if I don't, I'm just going to be upset.
I think that we'll have to blame it on COVID, but I also think like, okay, I get that they wanted season 2 to come out, quickly, but we all saw how with Euphoria, they took a 2.5-year break, and we saw how that worked for them. It worked perfectly. So I think they could have waited and really tightened this season up a little bit, rather than kind of rushing it out, which it feels like they did.
I don't disagree. It's just so frustrating.
It is. So I think, is there anything else that you kind of want to bring up before we go into our final thoughts?
I think we did it.
Okay. So Sarah, if you want to kind of give your final thoughts and your rating of season 2 of Bridgerton.
Okay. Oh gosh, this is so hard for me. Okay. My final thoughts of season 2 of Bridgerton, of the Kate and Anthony's story. I feel, as I said, they did a lot of things right, but they also did a lot of things wrong. But what they did right was so good. Mm-hmm. And then where they let me down hard. Like the Kate and Anthony chemistry, but you don't give me a wedding. Like the wonderful, loving storyline of the sisters was a fun change once I got over my shock of it. Mm-hmm. The seed planting and kind of using it as a throwaway season is really upsetting to me too. Yeah. So, I cannot give it the 5 diamonds that I would have given season 1.
Yeah.
But I will give it 3.25 diamonds.
Oh, okay. We are very, very similar. So I agree with everything you just said. And I think that Bridgerton season 1 was just like, it came out of the gates and it was like, whoa, this is like the new big amazing, this is the best, like the new.
I watched that season 5 times, dude. And I don't even love the Duke and Daphne, like 5, because it was so like magical.
Yes. So the first season was so great. And then we get this season and you're expecting something from what we got before. And this season does not deliver on any of kind of what we were expecting. And like you said, we also got so many great things like Kate and Anthony, and the 2 actors that are playing them are incredible, and their chemistry. And if they had just tightened up this season, took a little bit of time, I think we could have had something special. What we got is kind of like The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, or like that second installment of a story that just kind of like, it's the sophomore slump, like you said. Not a total slump, because there are some really great things about it, but it is a little bit of a slump. So I will give Bridgerton season 2 3 diamonds out of 5. And in context, I would give the first season 4 diamonds out of 5. So it's not a huge difference, but there's definitely some room for improvement in the coming seasons. And I really hope that the showrunners, Miss Shonda Rhimes, everybody involved kind of listens to the fans about this season, because I know there are going to be a lot of opinions.
A lot.
Yes.
I mean, we just talked on this thing for over an hour. I hope everyone enjoyed it, and I hope everyone joins in the convo.
Yes, I hope you guys join in the convo too. There's still so much more to talk about this season. So chime in the comments down below. Leave your thoughts. Let us know if you were disappointed by this season, if you loved it. We want to know everything. So comment down below. And before we leave, Lady Sarah Carey of Smells Like Teen Angst, tell everybody about yourself and where they can find you.
Absolutely. As Sean said, I am Sarah. I am the host of Smells Like Teen Angst. We're a channel, like, what do I say? We're a channel that talks about everything angsty, which obviously includes Bridgerton. You'll see me and a handful of my friends who decided that this would be fun.
Love it.
Yes. Throwing it back to you, Sean.
So obviously you know where to find me because you're on my channel. But this was so much fun, Sarah. I hope we get to do this for season 3 of Bridgerton. And until next time, everybody, take care. Bye.